You're fired.
You're 100% fired.
The show is literally just starting, and Simon is already fired.
So, oh yeah,
ahead,
this is the mood tonight. So, welcome back everybody to another Wisco Fanatics Friday night episode. We have Simon and Bryant joining us. Also, we have Packers writer, specialty Mike Spofford. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words here. I'm trying to get organized. So, I wanted to ask you a question. I wanted to start us out with a question.
All right.
I wanted to ask you, which celebration was your favorite? Did you like the Tanyan celebration, the gritty with everybody over the top of him, or did you like the which one was I talking about, Tyler?
The orchestra?
Yeah, the orchestra.
The band.
I was gonna ask Jair, but I was like, that one wasn't a touchdown. So let's go with the orchestra.
No, I love the orchestra, the band thing. I thought that was that was really clever and creative. And I don't know if you guys have checked out Packers.com. We actually every once in a great while we get we have a production company that we work with that does the Lego highlights.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, awesome.
So if you've seen this is the first time this year we did Lego highlights. It was off of the Vikings game, and the Legos actually have like the band instruments in the end zone and everything. It was really good. So that was definitely my favorite.
I still wish Aaron Rodgers would have hit the gritty instead of the belt when he ran it in, because I think the internet would have exploded.
Oh yeah, that might have broken the World Wide Web right there. Yeah. I think. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if the Vikings fans can get any more broken than they are. I mean, have you ever seen a fan base with more excuses, like pregame and postgame? I'm like generally curious.
Hey, I mean, here's the thing, like. If the Vikings want to make excuses about being banged up front on the offensive line, hey, like they legitimately were, and the Packers took advantage of that. There's no question about that. That was going to be when they're down to their third string center, and then they also lose their starting right tackle. That was going to be a tough game for them to win, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But all this complaining about the surface, the grass and slipping and I mean, did you guys see Packers guys slipping and falling? I didn't. I mean,
Bryant wanted to ask you about that so badly.
I heard that you were out on the field with a sprinkler and a hose before the game. So
just the middle.
Yeah, they'll make me part of a conspiracy theory at some point here. But I mean, seriously, it is standard, and I mean this in all honesty. It is standard operating procedure when teams go on the road and you're in a stadium, a field, a surface that is not 100% familiar to you, that you're not on it all the time. I mean, these guys take multiple pairs of cleats, replaceable studs where you can take out shorter ones, put in longer ones, or vice versa. Yep. All that is absolutely standard operating procedure for any NFL team. And if the Vikings did not pack the extra cleats or the longer studs or whatever is that is totally on them. I'm sorry. And there is a guy, Channing Sullivan, good guy, enjoyed him while he was with the Packers. He's on that team. He should have known how the surface at Lambeau Field in January, it can be different when it's 10 degrees versus when it's 40 degrees, that late in the season. I mean, all that kind of stuff, the fact that they weren't prepared for it, that is 100% on them. And the Vikings themselves, the organization, they have put it on themselves. It's the fans who want to complain and say that, that the Packers were up to something and this wasn't fair and, everything else. The Vikings themselves as an organization, they've taken it upon themselves and they said, hey, like we blew that. We need to be better. I heard Kevin O'Connell, other coaches for them this week, say we have to be better in that area. They have to be more prepared. They learned their lesson. There's no question about it.
They had another guy on their defense that used to play in Lambeau Field who didn't like to do handshakes.
Yeah, that too. I wasn't going to bring him up.
Oh, okay. But for his position,
we didn't on Sunday either. So,
yeah.
All right. So we're gonna jump right in. We had a really hard time. So, like, normally we do 3 stars and an underrated performer, but we had such a hard time deciding who we were gonna pick. So we eventually just decided on doing 4 stars, and we were going to do 4 underrated performers. And then we asked Mike to join back with us, and we asked him, like, hey, you want to get in on this? So now we have 5 stars and 5 underrated performers. So we each have one. I'll go first. My star is Keyshawn Nixon. He stood out to me so much. He really only had one play, but to me, that play meant so much more than just the 7 points that it accounted for. It came right after the Packers held the Vikings to a field goal inside the 5-yard line, and it immediately flipped the momentum. That's why that stood out so big to me, and that's why Keijon Nixon stood out so much to me as a star of this game. Simon, who is your star of the game?
Yeah, I had Aaron Jones. He kind of had, like, I guess, a small blemish. He kind of dropped that sideline throw. It seemed like it was right on the money, too. But outside of that, still 111 rushing yards on just 14 carries. And he had 3 runs over 10 yards, including a 31-yarder. I mean, Aaron Jones he's been showing up this year.
All right, Jake, who you got?
I had Jair Alexander. He 0 tackles for loss, 0 quarterback hits, 1 pass defense, and 1 disrespectful gritty, getting in the head of Justin Jefferson. And I think my favorite play, this one's like probably not a good one to point out, but my favorite play from Jair was after the interception from Amos. And he touches Jefferson on the back just a little bit, and Jefferson just loses it. That was the point of the game where I'm like, oh, yeah, Justin, just pack it up, buddy. You're done. He was mentally gone at that point, and I knew their offense was shot. It was over at that point.
Bryant, who you got?
So my star was Kenny Clark. Came up huge. I know I called for in our bold predictions. I said Ngbari would get the sack strip fumble, but it was Kenny Clark that pulled it out. He's been credited for anywhere between like 4 and 7 pressures. And then one of the interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, he was collapsing the pocket too and kind of made Cousins get rid of that ball earlier than he wanted to. So he just had it. We were calling. I know it's January now, but we've been calling him December Kenny since it really started this month, and he came up pretty big for us.
All righty, Mr. Spofford, welcome to the Stars and Underrated Performers section. Right. Who you got?
Actually, I'm gonna throw 2 more names into the mix for you guys. First, I'm gonna say Adrian Amos, and his interception was just recently mentioned, but it's not even so much just for that play. Going back through the defensive film after the game, when I looked at all the film on Monday, he had a really big tackle on a run blitz where he chopped down Dalvin Cook like right at the line of scrimmage on a play. You mentioned Kenny Clark with the strip sack. The play right before that was a pass to Hawkinson at the goal line. Adrian Amos was right there to break it up. Incomplete pass. Kenny Clark gets the strip sack on the very next snap. And with regard to the coverage against Justin Jefferson with Alexander, the Packers bracketed Jefferson quite a bit in that game. And a lot of times the guy who was the bracket on the back end, the second guy, call it double coverage. I like to call it bracket coverage, but a lot of times it's referred to just straight as double coverage. Adrian Amos was the guy who played a big part in taking Justin Jefferson out of that game as well. So he was the first one, but the other one that came to mind that I need to mention, and I was reminded of it because of that certain Vikings defensive player that wasn't really mentioned that much on Sunday, David Bakhtiari.
Yes.
Came back from the appendectomy after missed a few games, got in there. We did not hear much from Zadarius Smith or Danielle Hunter in that game on Sunday. Bakhtiari, after a month layoff and trying to get back in there, he looked right back to his old All-Pro self, and I think that could be really, really big here for the Packers with this game against the Lions, and obviously, hopefully, if they win, heading into the postseason. Because when you think about it, when's the last time the Packers had David Bakhtiari for games of this magnitude? You have to go all the way back to the 2019 playoffs for the last time David Bakhtiari was on the field for the Packers for games that meant this much. And the fact that he performed the way he did last week, I thought was huge.
All right. So go ahead. Yeah, we each have an underrated performer as well. I went with Quay Walker, and I picked Quay Walker specifically because I talked about him in the preview last week, that he was going to be really important when it came to defending TJ Hawkinson and Dalvin Cook. TJ Hawkinson did have a pretty decent game. He had 7 catches for 59 yards. A solid game, but it's nothing game-changing like he had been doing for them. And then only 3 of his 7 catches were for first downs. And then Dalvin Cook had 9 rushes for 27 yards, and 2 catches for 17 yards receiving. So Quay Walker didn't do all that himself, but I know he had at least 1 pass breakup on TJ Hawkinson, and he had 1 tackle that was on a 3rd down that kept the Lions from moving the stick. So I went with Quay Walker. Simon, who is your underrated performer?
Yeah, I had TJ Slayton. This was his first start in his career, and he came up huge. He had 2 deflected passes, including one that ended up being intercepted. 3 of Slayton's tackles came within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage, and including a tackle for a loss on 3rd and goal and another for no gain. So he just came up big this game.
All right, Jake, who you got?
I have the other gritty twin. I have Robert Tonyan. 3 catches, 52 yards, a touchdown, and wow, he could not have been more wide open. He was so wide open that Rodgers reset the pocket and still was wide open in the end zone. That was insane to me. But yeah, he looks like he's back too. He looked pretty quick on Sunday, in my opinion.
Had to put the Kittle Light jersey
Kittle
on
Light,
today.
baby. Kittle Light.
All right, Brian, who was your underrated performer?
I had to go with Allen Lazard 100%. So first 2 third downs of the game that we had on our first drive, where does Aaron Rodgers go? Allen Lazard. 3rd and 10 hits him for 14. 3rd and 6 hits him for 9. And then his next big target was right before half, he hits him for 16 yards and sets up Mason Crosby's like massive field goal. I can't remember last time I seen him kick that length of a field goal. So 4 of his 5 catches went for first down. So he just had a huge game for us. Really just continues to do what Allen Lazard's been doing all year. So
speaking of Mason Crosby, go ahead.
Yeah, Mason Crosby is my guy in this category. A quick side note, though, I actually did some research this week on Allen Lazard because a fan in Insider Inbox asked me to look it up. Allen Lazard has 56 receptions this year. 42 of the 56 have produced either a first down or a touchdown. 42 out of 56. That's pretty impressive. 37 first downs, 5 for touchdowns. So just wanted to throw that in there as for the numbers folks out there. But yes, my underrated performer in this game. I love all your guys' choices, all really good ones. But I'm going with Mason Crosby for a couple of reasons. One, the Packers had elevated Ramiz Ahmed, the kicker off the practice squad, to be the kickoff guy in the game against the Vikings because of Keenan Nwangwu and his, dangerous returns on kickoffs. They wanted Ahmed to be able to potentially kick the ball deeper. Well, Ahmed ends up getting injured during warmups. And so Mason Crosby, during warmups for the game, all he had been practicing was field goals. He was not even practicing getting ready to kick off at all, which then if you saw the opening kickoff of the game ended up being kind of that squibber down the middle. And, and everybody was kind of wondering like, all right, what's up with that? What's going on? Well, Crosby wasn't supposed to be kicking off in the game, but he ended up having to take on that duty because of Ahmed's injury. And then we saw him at the end of the first half hit the 56-yarder, what I like to call the crossbar clunk. And 56 yards, the longest field goal Mason Crosby has made in his career at Lambeau Field. And based on my research, it's the longest field goal I can find that has ever been made at Lambeau Field in the month of January. I don't think I could not find one. The closest one that I found was actually back in the 1994 playoffs. It was actually December 31st of 94, so it technically wasn't January, but it was at the end of the season. New Year's Eve of 94, Chris Jackie hit a 51-yard field goal at Lambeau Field. That's the longest one in terms of a late season playoff, this time of year that I could find that was made at Lambeau Field, because the other 2 longer ones than 56 were Josh Brown of Seattle had a 58-yarder and David Akers for San Francisco hit a 63-yarder. Both of those were in either September or October, not anywhere near December or January in terms of being able to hit from that distance. So Crosby making that 56-yarder right before halftime there, that was big time.
And that's
So
incredible to do it at 111 years old too.
I'm about to go get my Mason Crosby cutout real quick here, man.
I will say we haven't, as Packer fans, we haven't had like one game this year where we just like kind of sigh of relief. Okay, we're gonna win in this game. When I seen that ball hit the crossbar and go in, I was like, we're winning this game. Everything is going right for us. So it was such a relaxing second half, and I was like, I need it because my heart.
Wasn't that play supposed to not happen either? Like, didn't Matt LaFleur say that it wasn't supposed to happen?
LaFleur said he was talking to Aaron Rodgers about throwing a Hail Mary, and then he turned and looked, and Crosby was basically like running out on the field saying like, all right, I got this. Like, so they just let him, so they let him try it. Now, I don't think, this time of year, those conditions, I don't think they're letting Mason Crosby try a 56-yard field goal if it's not the very last play of the half because of the risk of the field position and whatnot, right? So, so that certainly plays into it. But Crosby was confident that he could make it, and he, got just enough to clip the crossbar and get it over. So
56.2 yards, that field goal is no good.
Yeah, I had the same feeling in the press box. So the way that first half went, and then to see that happen at the end of the half, and it's just like there's no way the Packers are losing this game now. I mean, there's just things, all the bad things that have happened throughout the course of the year. That was a night that everything seemed to be going right.
All right, so we'll jump into some questions. Like, I know I mentioned the Nixon kickoff return, but what was the play that stood out to you as the biggest shift in momentum?
Yeah, I would say it was a combination of what you had described before. It was getting the goal line stand after the block punt. I mean, first and goal on the 1 yard line. You're looking at, being down 7-0 right there. And the Packers defense gets the stop, turns them away, and then forces the field goal, and then Nixon takes the ensuing kickoff the other way. So instead of 7-0 being down, you're up 7-3 in a matter of moments. So that's essentially an 11-point shift. And the other thing for me, why that was such a big momentum shift, is because being in the press box, I could feel and sense and hear the intensity of the crowd building with that goal line stand. First down, incomplete pass by the pylon. Okay, they didn't get in on first down. Second down, Dalvin Cook gets stuffed. And then, it's like the crowd started to really get into it. It's like, okay, now it's third and goal. Got a chance to get the stop here, right? And then the third down play was where, Slayton just whips the number 3 center, who that was his first play of the game. Slayton just whips him, grabs a hold of Cook's jersey. Adrian Amos, stands him up there at the 2 yard line. They get the tackle for a loss on third down, and the crowd was really, really into it. And then after the field goal, Nixon takes the kickoff 5 yards deep. He hits that hole. And I mean, it was like Lambeau was up for grabs. And I felt like from that moment on, the crowd was into the game, was really behind the team. You could feel it, you could hear it. And I thought that was just a huge sequence early in the game that just completely turned things around.
From the press box, did you see the Red Sea open as I did
on
TV? I was like, because the camera angle had it straight down the middle of the field. And I was like, no way there's that much room. And you just see him sprint by the kicker. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it was. I mean, seeing it from the press box, you could see the lane that was developing. And then it was like, it was right away. It was like, oh, as long as the kicker doesn't trip him up, like it's curtains here, he's gone, and I mean, and it was interesting because I took a look at it on the film and I included the clip in my What You Might Have Missed segment with the video clips from this past week. And there was a really, really good block by Josiah DeGuara in the middle of all that mess. One of the Vikings linebackers, I think it was number 47. He comes in and DeGuara locks him up and just buried him into the ground, like off to the side, like amidst a bunch of other traffic. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was, I believe it was 83 Naylor, the wide receiver from Minnesota. Naylor. He just completely abandons his lane. I mean, they talk about lane integrity. He just completely abandoned it. And the combination of him going way off to the side because Nixon and Ballentine, kind of started their path that way. So he started to follow that way. Well, it's sort of like he bit hook, line, and sinker. And then when Nixon cut it back with Naylor way out of his lane and with DeGuara just burying his guy, it was like suddenly there was nobody there. And that was just phenomenal. I mean, just a huge lane.
You could see it that in the last couple of weeks, he was so close to like just taking one to the house, and for it to happen, it was amazing. So
big moment,
1 week late.
1
week late on
the opening kickoffs. He's really, really good with the opening kickoffs. The last 2 weeks, I'll say that.
Well, I mean, there's something about him. I mean, I've watched the film. I've obviously seen him live. There's something about him that where his speed is deceptive to the opponent, because he starts out in a certain gear, and then there's a moment where he makes a cut and then finds like another gear that it just seems like the opponent isn't necessarily expecting. And so then their angles are all off, like he suddenly turns what they think is a good angle into a bad angle because he hits another gear with his speed. It's really deceptive, I think, for coverage players, and it's working for him because I think it's either 5 or 6, 5 for sure, maybe 6 kickoff returns of 50 plus yards this year, which leads the NFL. And he didn't even have the job until, halfway through the season. So it's remarkable what he's done.
So how I compared Nixon is I said he's like a running back who has great patience, right? Like people used to talk about Le'Veon Bell this way, where he's very patient. He lets the block set up. And I feel like Aaron Jones is that way as well. Aaron Jones lets the blocks develop. And then, like you said, he can just hit that gear once he sees the hole. And nobody's talking about how good Nixon set up that hole. I don't think people are giving him enough credit, to be honest with you. And the blocking was great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to point that out because, in my opinion, I think he did a great job, like you said, setting up Naylor, and then boom, he's gone. Right.
Yep.
And that kicker was lost. I don't think he had a chance in hell, man.
No, that's a lonely place for Greg Joseph to be at that moment, with Keyshawn Nixon at absolute full throttle coming right at him, and Joseph has absolutely no help. I mean, he's pretty much helpless at that point.
I would say poor guy, but he's
just shrugged him off. He just kind of shrugged him off.
Yeah, that was the weakest stiff arm of all time. He said bye-bye.
He didn't lose a step either. That was the craziest.
Didn't even break stride. No.
So
Cody said Nixon has incredible vision, and Bill said Nixon has the footwork of a wide receiver. If you watch his cuts and plants, he measures his steps. Maybe that's why he's advocating to play slot receiver, which after getting banged up, I don't think is going to happen. But I don't know if it was last week or the week before. I did explore the possibility, and I brought up some examples of players that have done it. And there's some out there that have done it, but I don't think Nixon's going to get that chance. But I'll let Jake ask his question.
So you already got into it a little bit, but I was just wondering, what are some of the different ways the Packers defended Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, I mean, this was really interesting to go back and look at on the film, because while Jair Alexander certainly deserves a lot of credit for the effort he put in and what he did, for anyone out there who thinks that Jair Alexander just lined up across from Justin Jefferson on every snap of the game, that is not what happened. And it was not a matter of man-to-man coverage the whole game either. The Packers mixed up man coverage, zone coverage. There were times that Jefferson was in the slot, and then he was actually bracketed by a linebacker and a safety. If you look at the interception by Adrian Amos off the deflection by TJ Slayton, Jefferson's in the slot. He's actually being guarded by Quay Walker in the front, and Amos is behind. Walker, kind of reroutes him a little bit off the line of scrimmage, and then Amos is back there. Jefferson slips and falls, and then the deflected pass goes over his head, and Amos picks it off. There were other plays too where they deployed that same linebacker with a safety in the back. There was one play where at least one, probably more than one, where Darnell Savage was actually lined up against Jefferson in the slot. What I really liked about what Alexander did, because he did line up across from him the most, what I liked about what Alexander did is it wasn't just a matter of jamming him at the line of scrimmage on certain snaps. When you watch the film, he tried to surprise Jefferson with the jams. He would be kind of wandering around 5 or 6 yards off the line of scrimmage. And then when Cousins would get into his cadence, he would charge up and get right in front of him. And then right at the snap, bang. And Jefferson he wasn't ready for that. He was caught off guard by it a number of times. And Alexander deserves a lot of credit for the way he kind of played possum a little bit at times and disguised what he was doing. And as I said, even on some of those ones where he was jamming him, it was actually a zone coverage call. But when you get up and you jam a guy in his face like that, the instant reaction is that it's man-to-man. Well, it wasn't always man-to-man. The Packers were mixing and matching and doing different things. So it was a very creative plan, and it was a plan that was executed very, very well by the players.
How about Preston Smith on JJ on Kenny Clark's sack fumble?
But that's the thing though. They kept changing it up. Jefferson didn't know what look he was going to get. Cousins didn't know necessarily what looks they were going to get. And I give the Vikings a lot of credit all season long. They've been very, very creative in how they've used Justin Jefferson, putting him in motion, scheming him open, all these things. The Packers were the more creative team in terms of how they defended him versus how the Vikings were trying to use him in that game. The creativity was on Green Bay's side, and it worked in their favor.
All right.
Yeah. So, do you think this is the best tackling game we've seen from the Packers this season? If not, what other one comes to mind?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because every time it seemed like every time a Packers player tackled one of the Vikings players, it seemed like there was like a few guys around, like they just swarmed the guy all game.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I'm not sure, how I would rank it in terms of a tackling game as far as number of missed tackles or whatever, like statistically, but in terms of how the defense looked, the number of players who were around the ball, kind of the swarming to the ball, as they say, I thought this was the Packers defense looked the best it's looked in that regard, probably all season. Certainly, at least since maybe the Tampa Bay game back in week 3. I mean, when they really shut down Tom Brady and the Buccaneers for, almost all 60 minutes. I mean, really 58 minutes there. The Buccaneers really didn't do anything in that game. I thought that's, the way the Packers defense was flying around, swarming to the ball reminded me of that game.
I pulled this up. This was a 3rd and 14 play. This was a screen pass that they ran. You can see 4 Packers defenders ready to tackle him on a 3rd and 14. He wasn't going to get farther than 4th and 11.
Yeah.
So seeing, like you said, that rallying to the ball, that's definitely a good call out.
If
Brian,
this wasn't the best tackling game, we saw the best tackle of the season from Quay Walker. I'll just say that.
All right. So, in your opinion, whether it be scheme, player improvement, what has been the biggest catalyst for like the defensive improvement we've seen in the last month and a half or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just been, the obvious answer is turnovers, right? I mean, 12 takeaways in a span of 4 games. The Packers had 12 takeaways in their first 12 games of the season. They've doubled that total during the 4-game winning streak. So then the next question is, well, why are they getting all the takeaways? Which speaks to the question about the catalyst for the defensive improvement. I kind of go back to what I was just referring to, I think, in terms of the creativity, because we're seeing a lot more mixing up of coverages, also mixing up, when to blitz, who is blitzing. It's the Packers are really picking their spots with the blitzes, and it seems like they're catching the opponent off guard. And I think that's because they're not necessarily doing it in the same down and distance or with similar personnel than they were earlier in the season, all the stuff that's on film. I think there have been some change-ups in that regard. And then the other thing I would say is just the communication in the secondary. I mean, you go back to week 1, and I know week one is week one, and everybody's trying to figure stuff out. But the Packers secondary, they looked lost at US Bank Stadium in terms of, who's going here, who's doing this, like how are we covering Jefferson and this guy? I mean, and you look at the coordination of, the way when they're in zone coverage, the way they're passing things off, the way they're communicating with one another, they're just playing at another level right now. And yeah, of course, we would have loved to have. Everybody would have loved to have seen it, seen that come around a lot sooner. For whatever reason, it didn't. It took a while. They got here now, and they have the opportunity they have, and hopefully it's enough to make this work.
So Bill asked the question. Bill's pretty loyal follower of the show. He asked the question: has defensive improvement been enough to take the pressure off Joe Barry?
That's that is a really interesting question because certainly after the Philadelphia game, the 40 points, the 20 some missed tackles, that was when everybody was kind of throwing up their hands and saying, what are they going to do here? I think Joe Barry deserves a lot of credit for how far this defense has come in the last month. I'm not big on making predictions as far as where things are going to go. I mean, Matt LaFleur decided to make a change at defensive coordinator after the Packers went to the NFC Championship game, right? So I don't like to necessarily predict one way or another what might happen here, but I think Joe Barry has done quite a job in turning things around and getting this defense to play the way it was expected to play from the beginning. It is disheartening, disappointing that it didn't show up sooner in the season. I think those are the kinds of things that Matt LaFleur is going to be evaluating after the season, but it's not something that's on his mind right now, because what's on his mind right now is beating the Detroit Lions and seeing if the Packers can make a run at this thing.
So that kind of ties in really well into the next question is with, the last time we talked, we were talking about wanting to avoid the 49ers because they seemed like a really just like powerhouse, complete rolling hot team. Does the defensive improvement coupled with the fact that the Raiders just put up 30 plus on the 49ers give you a little more confidence in a potential playoff matchup against them?
Yeah, I mean, the way the Packers are playing defensively, the way they're playing on special teams, the spark that Nixon has obviously provided, and the fact that I still think this Packers offense has another level that it can get to. I don't think this Packers offense is really clicking on all cylinders yet. The last couple of weeks, certainly Miami, and also in some moments against Minnesota, they're in close and not maximizing some of those drives. So I do think there's another level for this offense. I think all of that combined certainly gives you a lot of confidence in any kind of a playoff matchup. With regard to the 49ers, I still say right now they're the best team in the NFC. They're playing like the best team in the NFC, even with the rookie 7th round pick Brock Purdy at quarterback. The fact that the Raiders were up by 10 points in the second half, excuse me, against the 49ers last week, I think does. Oh, excuse me, guys.
That's all right. It happens. Wintertime in Wisconsin, that'll get you.
The fact that the Raiders were up by 10 points in the second half in that game, I think definitely changes the view of the 49ers a little bit, because they didn't quite look like the juggernaut that they had been for the last couple months. And the other thing I'll say, and you never know how this kind of stuff is going to go, but if you're a Packers fan, you're going to dream big, and this is not just about getting into the playoffs, but how far can you go? Can you take this thing all the way? If you're going to have to beat the 49ers at some point, if you're going to have to get through them to get where you want to go, do you want to face the rookie 7th round pick in his first playoff game, maybe, as opposed to after he's got 1 or 2 under his belt? Just throw that out there for consideration. It's something to think about.
I'd love to beat the 49ers 10-7 in San Francisco.
Why not?
I would just like to beat the 49ers.
Yeah,
I'm so sick and tired of those jokes, man. My God. Also, thank you very much. I was literally arguing with 49ers fans this week, and I was like, dude, we're going to have to play them anyways, right? The 49ers are the best team in the NFC right now. So if we play them the first week, we play them the first week. I don't give a crap. Let's go, right? So
I think the thing that I like the most about that is that we get to go into this game without the expectations of having the number 1 seed. And I think that's what really excites me about this playoff run is if they get in, they're getting in as the 7th seed. So there's a lot less pressure. And I think that gets the players to play a little looser and not so, uptight, like, we can't screw this up. But it's more like, hey, we're here. Like, let's just have fun and see what happens. I like that mindset more.
Yeah, you think about, say, for example, the run the table in 2016. I know the Packers ended up with the first playoff game at home that year, but then they go to Dallas. They're facing the number 1 seed Cowboys on the road, and it's sort of like the Packers were playing with house money, right? I mean, by that point, you were 4-6. Suddenly, you've won 7 games in a row. You're getting a shot at the number 1 seed in their place, and sure enough, you end up knocking them out and surviving, to play another week. So, who the heck knows? To me, if you guys read me, I'm always, the playoffs in the NFL are a total crapshoot. It is a roll of the dice. All you want is to have a chance to have the dice in your hand, and you take your shot at it and see what happens.
This year in particular, I definitely feel like that. I feel like there's no San Francisco is really good, but they're still having conversations about possibly putting Garoppolo back in. And I feel like that might throw off the rhythm of the team too if they do that. So they have some questions.
Yeah,
too, so.
I mean, I think San Francisco has been the best team in the NFC, and I don't want to take, I'm not trying to take anything away from the Philadelphia Eagles, but even the injury to Jalen Hurts aside, look at what's happened to the Philadelphia Eagles defense since the Packers went into the Link and put up 33 points on those guys. That Philadelphia Eagles defense has hit some hard times. They're not playing the way they want to be playing defensively here at the end of the season and going into the playoffs. They're even if the Eagles do win on Sunday and get the number 1 seed, there are going to be a lot of questions about that team, even if Jalen Hurts comes back and is fully healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because to me, the most important thing is being healthy and playing your best football. Like Roger says, I 100% agree with that, and that's how I felt the 2010 team was. They weren't healthy, but they were playing their best ball at the end of the season, which obviously we know what happened that year. We're hoping for that again. So this one's a little bit of a random question, but I was really wondering, whose confidence is higher, Jair Alexander or Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever come across a player more confident 127% of the time than Jair Alexander.
Yep.
That guy, absolutely nothing phases that guy. And that's not to say that I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is not a confident player. Like, Aaron Rodgers is absolutely confident in winning any game and in anything that he needs to do in order to win a game. But Jair Alexander, I think the game in Chicago that started this 4-game winning streak is the best example of that. He kind of got caught peeking in the backfield, maybe trying to jump a route, get a cheap interception or something, and got burned for a couple of plays over his head. Absolutely does not bother him in the slightest. And then what ends up happening? He gets the big interception in the fourth quarter when the Packers needed to try to close out that victory. He doesn't get bothered. He doesn't get bothered by anything. And he can stand there in front of the media last Thursday and say Justin Jefferson's 184-2 from week 1 is a fluke. And then he goes out there and backs it up, right? I mean,
and he wears a giant hat.
That too. But no, to answer the specific question, I've never come across a player more confident in any moment, any situation than Alexander.
I love him.
Yeah, his interviews are so good. I love his
interviews. He's a different breed of cat, and he's quite the entertaining one as well. So
that's awesome. Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, so it seems like the Packers offensive line seems to be getting healthy, and they're kind of gelling at the same time. What other observations have you kind of seen over the last few weeks, ever since we kind of started this mini run we're going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that guys have settled into their positions, I think has been a big thing, right? I mean, getting Elton Jenkins back at left guard, letting him settle in there and play a number of games there. As I mentioned before, it's a big help to get David Bakhtiari back. I mean, Zach Tom, shout out to Zach Tom, a rookie 4th-round pick being able to just fill in wherever they need him. That's been big as well. But what I really like that has developed since Elton Jenkins has gotten back to left guard is the interior with, going left to right, Jenkins, Myers, and Runyon. Just seems like it's turned into that a solid threesome that the Packers can do what they need to do, handle things up the middle, because all those guys, Runyon's now in his third year, Myers is in his second year. I think all those guys are playing really, really well. And then you add to that after a month off, that David Bakhtiari is back at left tackle, and from a game plan perspective, the coaches can go, oh yeah, okay, we got Bakhtiari over there on the left side, we're all good there. And having Bakhtiari next to Jenkins, which when you think back to 2019 and 2020 before Bakhtiari got hurt, that left side of the Packers offensive line was, in my opinion, as good as it gets in the league. And the Packers are going into hopefully making a run here with those two guys playing side by side. You gotta like that.
Yeah.
Bill said they're getting healthy at the right time and having the late bye. He said that he thinks that has a positive effect on our playoffs chances. And David said we have a stellar offensive line, and I don't think you're going to find anybody to disagree. We actually posted the clip this morning of you when you were here with us last time talking about Zach Tom and all the great things that he's done, and like you said, filling in. And yeah, that's awesome to see, especially from a rookie.
Well, and a rookie and a guy who wasn't drafted until the fourth round. I mean, we're not talking about a guy that got all the hype, pre-draft and gets picked, in the first 30 picks or 50 picks or something like that. This is a guy who was taken in the fourth round, and he's been able to step in wherever the Packers need him to and perform really, really well. I tip my hat to that young man.
All right. So you kind of mentioned it already. I'll let Bryant ask the question, but you kind of mentioned it a little bit already because you're tremendously good at what you do. So you kind of get ahead of some of the topics. Go ahead,
That's
Bryant.
okay. So how does this 2022 run compare to what you've seen in 2010 and 2016?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't see a lot of comparisons. I mean, I guess I would say this one feels more like 2016 to me than 2010. I think because, 2010, if you remember, Rodgers ends up getting the concussion in Detroit and they lose that game. And then he has to miss the game at New England because of the concussion. And then, suddenly the team is just 8-6 and you're kind of right on the fringe of the playoff race and you're not really sure how things are going to go. But then Rodgers came back and then everything kicked into gear. This one, this one is, to me, is more similar to 2016 because in 2016, the Packers started out, they're playing pretty solid football. Then they hit that 4-game losing streak that dropped, they went from 4-2 to 4-6. And the last 3 games of that 4-game losing streak, they quite frankly kind of got blown out, definitely blown out by Tennessee and Washington in the last 2 of that 4-game losing streak. And things just really did not look good. That losing streak started with a last-second loss in Atlanta. I believe it was Mohamed Sanu caught a pass with 10 seconds left or something.
I remember that.
And so the Packers, instead of being 5-2, Packers were 4-3. And then, that started a skid that they were 4-6 before they climbed their way out of it. This season, I've said this on Unscripted, this week, said it in Insider Inbox as well. The roller coaster ride of this season is almost been, it's similar to 2016, but it's almost even, more up and down in the sense that, the Packers were 3-1 with a 10-point lead at halftime over the Giants, who are now in the playoffs. 10-point lead at halftime in London over the Giants with a 3-1 record. And then suddenly it's like the bottom fell out. They couldn't win a game, lose 5 in a row, ends up losing 7 out of 8. And then on the bottom side of that, you're 4-8 with a 9-point deficit in the fourth quarter in Chicago to a team that has only 3 wins when you only have 4 wins. And they need an 18-0 fourth quarter in Chicago to start this run and then turn things, headed back in the other direction. So the swings of this season have been sharper and more pronounced. And so that's why this one feels completely different to me. On top of the fact that I think this year more than any other, the Packers needed a lot of things to go their way over the last several weeks in terms of other results to, I mean, I think when you guys had me on before, which was before the Rams game,
yep.
I think if we had said at that time the Packers were going to go into week 18 against Detroit with a chance to make the playoffs, we would have been saying, okay, yeah, they're going to need to win that game, and maybe Washington's going to need to lose, or maybe the Giants are going to need to lose, or something. The fact that it got to this point and the Packers don't need any more help, that all they need is a win to get in, that's a lot of things that have gone their way. And it's what makes this one feel, just completely different to me, at least at this stage of it.
It was the Christmas weekend. It was Christmas Eve, where we were wanting Seattle, we were wanting Washington, New York, like all of them and Detroit, all of them to lose, and all four lost.
Yeah.
And then the Packers went and beat the Dolphins in Miami that Sunday.
Yeah, we were on the plane on Christmas Eve. We're on the plane flying down to Miami on that Saturday afternoon, and everybody on the plane, we have the little TV screen, in the back of the seat in front of you, and like everybody's watching the games and flipping the channels and checking everything out, and it was like we were getting off the plane. I mean, not everything was done at that point, but we were getting off the plane kind of going, yeah, like everything kind of seems to be falling into place. If we're back on this plane after the Miami game with another victory, all of this looks really realistic all of a sudden, and that's what's unfolded.
All right, Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, so looking ahead to this week's game, obviously playing we're in, winning we're in. What are your keys to the victory for the Packers this week?
Yeah, I hate to be the guy that states the obvious, but I'm gonna explain why I'm going with the obvious here, and the obvious
be like 4 more points than the other team.
Yeah, no, not quite like that.
But that was my first one of the season.
It's the kind of thing you can say about any game, but I think for a lot of reasons that I'll get into, I think it really applies to this game, and it's about winning the turnover battle in this game. And I say that for a number of reasons. One, we already talked about the fact that the Packers defense has gotten this resurgence, mostly thanks to the turnovers. 12 takeaways in the last 4 games, doubling the season total from the first 12 games of the year. Number 2, the Detroit Lions have the fewest giveaways on offense of any team in the league. They've only given the ball away 3 times in their last 8 games, only 15 times on the season. Jared Goff has not thrown an interception since Jair Alexander picked him off in week 9 at Ford Field. That's his last INT. So those factors, and then combined with the fact that the Packers lost that game at Ford Field because Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions for the only time in the past 5 years. 2 of those interceptions being in goal-to-go situations and the other one being in a red zone situation. So all of that surrounds this game as far as the turnover issue just screams at me that and it may just be one turnover by one team or another that could decide this thing. And I think the Packers have got to win the turnover battle to win this ball game.
All right, Jake, go ahead. Ask your question. I know you want to because we heard the ask on Monday.
Yeah, we heard we saw Devondre Campbell and Christian Watson on Monday on another show, and they asked Watson this question, and I'm wondering what your answer is. Okay. Who is the fastest player on the team?
Oh, if I had to guess, I would guess it's Watson. I think
who's second?
Oh boy.
I said Stokes. I think Stokes is second fastest.
Yeah, he might be That's a really good one. I think interesting one. I think Stokes. I agree with you. I think Stokes maybe is just a tad faster than Savage because Darnell Savage can really run. That guy's fast. The other one I'd like to actually see, I mean, if you lined them all up for, whether it's a 40-yard dash or a 60-yard dash or whatever, I'd like to see if Keyshawn Nixon could hold his own against those guys because he's no slouch in the speed department. But I think I would have to say if I were to pick who I think would win that race, I think it's Christian Watson.
I think we kind of talked about this last time too. We said how effortless it looked for Watson to just like turn it up.
Yeah,
dude,
he just has that long stride.
Yeah. When he gets going, that type of long stride speed is very reminiscent of a guy that I grew up watching, which was James Lofton. When he gets up to full speed with those kind of strides, it's like he's swallowing up hashes with like one step after. I mean, it's phenomenal. And that's what Lofton was like back in the 80s, watching him when he could hit high gear.
So it was really fun. Jake and I went to see Christian Watson and Devondre Campbell at Clubhouse Live in Appleton.
Okay.
And we have this. So we have the Christian Watson apology form that we made after his huge game in Dallas. And I gave one to Christian Watson and he laughed. And I got him to sign the other one. So I have a Christian Watson apology form signed by Christian Watson. That is one of my exciting prized possessions. But Brian, go ahead with your last question, and then we'll get a score predictions and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is this probably the best draft class you've seen since you've been covering the Packers? Just the impact they're having this year seems huge. So I'm wondering if you could compare any, or if this is the best one.
Yeah, that's a good one to think about. I would say in terms of the rookie impact, I would say this one ranks up there. The one I would probably want to study a little bit more closely would probably be 2013, because you had Eddie Lacy in the second round. You had David Bakhtiari, who ended up having to play left tackle when Brian Bulaga blew out his knee on family night. And then you also had Micah Hyde as a rookie 5th round pick in 2013. So the impact of those 3 draft picks in particular that year was pretty significant. So I'd have to study it a little bit further to really compare. But this one with what Walker has done, Watson, obviously Dobbs in that mix. We talked about Zach Tom, and there's somebody else.
Wyatt.
Yeah, Enigbari with Rashawn Gary going down. With the knee injury back in week 9 and the way Enigbari has developed and made an impact. This one definitely ranks up there. Certainly a lot to be excited about, and with the progress late in the season that Devontae Wyatt has made. The other 1st round pick, a guy who was pretty quiet, trying to figure some things out, feel his way. We've seen him make some higher impact plays here down the stretch, and that's been big for the Packers as well.
David said the Matthews-Raji draft, that was what, 2009?
Yep. Yeah, that was 2009. Yeah, that one was certainly good. I mean, having the 2 1st round picks, ended up making 2 1st round picks with the trade up for Matthews. That was pretty big. That year. The rest of that draft class, though, TJ Lang was in that draft class, but he didn't really become a starter until, about 3 years down, 2 or 3 years down the road after that. So as far as like rookie impact, Raji and Matthews were definitely right there, but I don't recall too many other guys in that 2009 draft class that were high impact players as rookies.
We were talking about 6-7 starters out of the 11 draft picks this year.
Yeah,
and
it's exciting.
Guys that are contributing on special teams that were undrafted players, like you mentioned, Ballantine, and like we've seen Tariq Carpenter out there a few times. Like, I mean, going even as deep as undrafted players as well.
Yeah. And I think in 20, that's the other thing too. Why I'd actually like to look a little closer at 2013, because if memory serves me correctly, I think 2013 is when Lane Taylor was an undrafted rookie. I could have the year wrong on that, but he ended up making a bit of an impact that year as well.
That's fair.
All right. So on this show, we do 2 score predictions every week. We do one from the head, the analytical one. We do one from the heart, where everything goes right. So give us your 2 score predictions for Sunday's game.
All right. Which one do you want first?
Head first.
All right. head first. I think the Lions, whether the Lions are playing for a playoff spot or not, they're going to know by kickoff, obviously, what happens with the Seattle Seahawks. But whether the Lions are playing for a playoff spot or not, I think they're going to give the Packers everything they can handle. But I believe the way the Packers are playing, the Lions have definitely not been the same team on the road as they've been at home. I like the Packers' chances here, and I will take Green Bay 27-23.
Pretty close to what I have. All right, what about a prediction from the heart? Everything goes right in an ideal world.
Yeah, I mean, then I think you're looking at maybe a game, maybe not quite 41-3 in the fourth quarter like last week, but I think you're looking at a game where the Packers can, if things really do go right, and I do believe they're the better team here. I think the Packers can be in command of this thing, and I think they could be strolling out of Lambeau at 33-16.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you joining us again. Like your insights are awesome, and like the way that you recall everything is great, and it's enjoyable to have you on, and we get just more perspective than even the four of us give. So we really appreciate you taking the time to jump on with us again. We'd love to have you back again.
Yeah,
February
absolutely.
3rd, before we play in Glendale.
All right, yeah, you put me down. We'll figure it out. I enjoy chatting with you guys. This is actually a lot of fun. I appreciate the forum you guys have, and just the vibe and the attitude you guys take to your show. It's a lot of fun. So I enjoy coming on with you. I appreciate you dialing me up.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. We'd love to have you back. Hopefully we can maybe we can have you back next Friday and we'll talk about a playoff matchup.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. All right, guys.
And Jake and I will be at the game on Sunday. So if we could, we'd love to meet up with you.
Yeah. Shoot me an email. We'll figure something out.
That sounds good.
All right. Guys.
Take care. Have a good night.
Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Take it easy.
Yeah,
Simon on the big screen. Leave him up there. Leave him up there. Leave him up there. Leave him up there.
No, I hate that.
I liked it. Make him uncomfortable.
Make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, dude. I took a look at that. Yeah, he was right about Lane Taylor, and also J.C. Treader was part of that draft class too.
That's a pretty good class. Then.
Yeah, now that I'm looking back at some of the draft classes, 13 was a pretty solid one too.
Yeah. Dude, I think 13 was when I decided like the Packers just take like 5 offensive linemen and 3 of them are going to turn good no matter fucking what. No matter what.
Now he's got to get all the swearing out that Spofford's off.
Oh, yeah. It was all pent up.
Hey, good vibes. We're chilling. Just deep breath.
I think he knows everything.
I was so nervous. I tongue-tied myself.
I feel like Spofford knows everything.
Dude, he made me feel good when he said something that I said to a San Francisco fan. I was like, God damn it, I am smart. This guy works for the NFL, and he's saying what I'm saying.
2010 draft wasn't that bad either. Balaga, Neal, Burnett.
I think he hit the nail on the head talking about the rookie impact this year, and that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Particularly the rookie impact. I think that's probably as close as it gets.
Yeah, I was never a big fan of Morgan Burnett. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, we had this discussion. I love Morgan Burnett. I thought he played pretty well.
Honestly, the things that Spofford said when he was on with us, the thing that really stood out to me was actually when I asked him about momentum shifting, and he brought up the crowd noise from first to second to third down on that goal line stand, because I didn't even think about that. I was thinking like one single play, and he actually thought, he went crowd noise of 3 specific plays. So that actually to me was like something that I didn't really notice, obviously not being in the stadium.
Yeah, another point he talks about how on that third down, Amos hits him at the 2-yard line, and I think that's where they spot the ball. If that's on the 1-yard line, I wonder if they go for it again and it changes momentum or anything. So that's such a big play there too. Just because I was really surprised they were kicking field goals. Like, all right, like that's such a huge win for us there from that momentum change, So
yeah, that's good stuff. I like having him on. He's a very smart guy.
He knows his shit.
Been in the business for a long time.
Yeah.
Simon, someday that could be you.
I doubt it.
Never be.
I cuss way too much, man. I swear way too much.
Listen. When he logged off and StreamYard had to pick one person to be the face of the show,
face of the organization.
That's true. That's true.
I'm sure
Natural
it was.
selection.
I'm sure that's the reason why.
I could see Simon, going through the insider's inbox questions when we're going through a slump, and he would go off on some of those people. So
I love
not
that.
answering this. You're dumb.
He's so
the letters
articulate
wouldn't
about
even
it
be
too.
you are spelled out. It would just be you are dumb.
He's so when dude, I would take all those stupid ass questions and answer them all.
They've done that.
You know,
before,
I might do
They've
that. I'm
taken
gonna
some really
apply
bad
for a
questions.
job just to answer those dumb questions. Just for that, do like an insider's
Do they
inbox,
have a Packers.com
unfiltered.
dumb question answer?
Yeah.
Hey, I just love the fact. I want to make this point that we're trying to put on an optimistic show. When we had him on last time, we talked about, hey, like why you see these people calling for us to tank for a pick. Why should they not be doing that? Why should they be optimistic? Now he comes back on. Lo and behold, it's like he made the point. We don't even need anyone's help at this point. We control our own destiny, and like that's why I know people want to call it realism and try to poo-poo my point because I misspelled one word and stuff like that on Twitter. But it's like
whoever could you be talking about?
I'm not going to say the name, but
I'll say it. I don't give a shit.
No, be nice, be cordial. But like just having the optimistic view and like, hey, like this is what could. Obviously, we've talked in back channels like, hey, how are we going to approach something if our season does end? What are we going to talk about? But we're not going to talk about that on the show because we want to be optimistic and put good things into there and look at where we're at now.
The main thing is like it's not over until the chances are zero. We dealt with under 5% chances to make the playoffs this year. We got that low. We got to what, 2% chances?
2 or 3%, depending on it. Yeah,
depending on where you looked.
2% and change.
It's just too bad it's not bumped up
that low.
It's too bad our percentage right now isn't bumped up 2 more percent. That would be perfect.
I saw that too.
It's at 67 right now. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw
that too.
Yeah. We're trending in the right direction.
I will say though, it is kind of nice to see the Packers fan base turn a leaf now that we're in a spot where we could potentially make the playoffs again.
No. I texted so many people after we beat the Dolphins, and I was like, everybody's getting back on the fucking bandwagon. Like, come on.
I meant that kind of facetiously.
Yeah.
Because
like,
I'm really crapping on the fans that dogged us when we were at 4-8, and we're sitting on the show like, things have been disappointing.
Yeah.
But there's still opportunity for this team to make the playoffs. And
look, when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback.
To be honest, it's not even Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
This defense has been playing phenomenal.
Yeah.
Special teams has been good, minus that block punt last week. I mean, and the run game's been pretty stellar.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say I just want to toot our horn a little bit as we're sitting on here at 4-8 talking about still making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting with a spot where we win and we're in.
Yeah.
At Lambeau. And I agree with you, Simon. It's not all Aaron, but Aaron deserves so much credit for I'm not. Ask him at the podium, like, oh, do you think Jordan Love?
I agree.
Or we're not eliminated yet. So instilling that leadership, that's been great.
Yeah, I know I brought it up at least twice where people would ask him questions where, like, based on the guys you have in the soccer room, do you think you can still make a run? Well, like, without hesitation, like he says, you're goddamn right we can.
Yeah.
Things like that, and people still say that he's not a leader.
Who was it, Mark Ingram a few years ago? I think we ain't done yet. That's pretty much Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers actually talked about his leadership on Pat McAfee. I don't remember if it was this week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, but he talked about how he feels he had to take another level up on his leadership this year. So I thought that was really interesting. But the people that wanted to freaking tank for a pick, and we have Aaron fucking Rodgers, you deal with these jokes your entire life of having generational quarterbacks, only 2 Super Bowls, right? We have that generational quarterback yet. Why the fuck are we giving up? I just don't understand.
Especially when time is limited. It's not like he's 29; he's 39.
Right. Yeah. He's still got the scoot though. The scoot.
We don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm telling you right now, I would trade the last 4 weeks in the ride we've been on, and to do this again rather than this whatever pick we might would have ended up with, and who knows what player. All day, 100%. Any fan that tells you no, we want to lose for picks, that's because they have a loser mentality. I would
easily take like this Sunday night, like the atmosphere. Sunday night,
excited.
And the 20th pick, over the last 4 weeks of what would have been tanking
And the eighth
and
pick.
the fifth pick.
Or fifth
Or the
pick,
or the eighth pick. Like it's not even really a contest for me, honestly.
No.
Yep.
So Robert said Aaron never gave up, which is definitely true. And Bill said about Mike Spofford that he seems to enjoy it and it's great to listen to. It's fun for us because we try to relate what some of the fan base is thinking, because we're all obviously pretty active on social media, in addition to wanting to kind of have that analyst vibe to us. We want to be able to provide like quality analysis on top of it, but also relate to it as a fan standpoint. And then to have somebody who's so close to the team as actually working for the team come into like our forum. And I think that's what he kind of enjoys about it, is that he can kind of be a little bit looser with his, with his
approach.
Sure. Like, it's not as serious because you're just on a sports show and we like to joke around and stuff like that. So,
and like a lot of people idolize like a celebrity or something. Mike Spofford is someone type of person I idolize, because that's something like
absolutely,
like I feel like we can do right here. I'm not saying I would ever work for the Packers, but just how cool his job is and everything. Like he's great. He's a pleasure to talk to for sure.
As we're
dude,
in the back chat
15 years from now, who says we're
jokes.
not still here doing this show and we're sponsored by Culver's or something. I don't know. Yeah, Bill, Bill, no problem for answering your question. That's a good question, and that's why we do the show live, so that we can interact with the people that want to comment on our show. We appreciate that.
Yeah, Bill, you're pretty loyal. You stick with us on Wednesdays and Fridays, man. It's pretty legit, man. I appreciate that, really.
Yeah. What was it earlier in the week?
Someone at the beginning of the show and says, "What's
someone
up?"
kind of praised us a little bit too.
Bill, I will say, watching our show is much better than watching the Bucs right now, because they are getting their teeth kicked in right now.
Oof.
I don't know what it is about the Bucs that like teams just decide that they're going to go nuclear once a year.
Yeah, we're going to hit 40 3-pointers tonight. There's nothing you're going to do about it.
We're going to shoot 41 and we'll make 40.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Is it bad? Right. What's the score right now?
Last I saw, it was like 112 to 87. Yeah, we're getting whooped.
It was 51-28 after the first quarter.
The thing with the Bucs, though, is they're getting
50 points in a quarter.
They're getting to be such a good team that I'm not saying they're cashing it in the regular season, but they're going to ramp it up once.
They don't give a fuck.
They don't care until the post All-Star break.
It is literally what, January 5th, 6th. It's January 6th today. You think I give a shit that we're losing to the Hornets? No. Come talk to me in April, okay? Then I'll care.
Yep.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
So let's get into some preview. Bill said they pulled the starters 127-103. All right. My dad said Thanasis just crushed someone.
Looking forward to seeing that.
All right, Brian, give us the relatively short Packers versus Lions injury report.
It is very short. Packers only have one player. It could be a big player. You're talking about. I mean, Spoff talked about the block that he threw on that return touchdown. Is Josiah DeGuara popped up with a calf injury. He wasn't listed on Wednesday, did not practice yesterday, and then he was limited today. So it could be trending in the right direction that he'll get out there. And then for the Lions, they really no big injuries. They have Jeff Okudah, who's been benched recently, Ragnow, and Deshaun Elliott, who is actually kind of talking smack about Aaron. All are questionable, but I think all three of them will play.
So. Bro, that thing he said was so stupid.
Yeah.
Rodgers came out and praised the Lions,
and they were like trying to. Somebody said like they're trying to like fake hype themselves up.
Yeah,
it's like
so
like they're desperate for motivation. It's like it's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, a little bit of
stuff. You want to give Aaron Rodgers bulletin board material? That's your prerogative.
I've always wondered that, Brian. Now that you brought that up, you got these great athletes, right? And they're all great athletes on NFL teams. But then you have the all-time greats, right? And Rodgers is definitely in that class. Why would you piss him off? Yeah. Like, why would you give him a reason to whoop your ass?
He's the ultimate like chip on your shoulder type of guy.
100%.
Yeah, I guarantee that dude's getting a touchdown.
Don't do the belt. Don't do it.
Just don't do the belt. I hope what happens last week to the Minnesota player happens this week to that dude, where he just bites on a pump fake and Rodgers runs it in for a touchdown, does the bell. I would die laughing.
Like, if I could rewrite history, it would be Aaron Rodgers pulling the gritty when he ran that one in, because I literally think everything would have just like melted. Bro. It would have been so crazy, dude.
Could you that would have been, dude.
That would have probably been my all-time favorite Rodgers moment if he did that.
Yeah, 100%.
All time. All
That's
time.
close.
Even more
God.
than the I
Just to
own
see
you.
39-year-old Aaron Rodgers doing a fucking TikTok dance.
I mean, last year when Rodgers, when he pump faked Jalen Ramsey and he ran into the end zone, and then he was talking shit afterwards, that was a pretty lit celebration. I won't lie.
Yeah, that would have been my all-time
But
favorite.
could you just imagine Aaron Rodgers doing the gritty? Like, Lambeau would have exploded for one.
Dude, imagine he does the one where he fakes the hammy injury.
Oh, that would have been good too.
What if he faked the thumb injury?
Yeah.
Oh my god. So I put up Robert's comment for a reason. Robert said, I hope Elliott plays. I want him to. So do I. So now this is an opportunity we have where we can be mature, but also rivalry oriented at the same time. So Elliott's listed on the injury report as being limited in practice. And we can get to a point where we want this guy who's potentially injured to play. Like, we want him to be healthy enough to play. And then we want to score 10,000 points against him.
Yep.
Like, that's how we want it to be. We want it to, be about the competition, not about injuring somebody or having a guy hurt, because it is still a person. Like, he might be a dick, but like, he's still a person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So at that point, it's like, we're playing a football game. Like, let's go beat them 41-3, which I told a bunch of people, like Vikings fans, I'm like the Vikings lost by 38. I don't give a shit about two.
I don't give a shit about those
after
two.
the starters were
Against
pulled.
Valentine, who only plays special teams for us.
Yeah.
My dad said Angie loves Showalter doing the belt move in front of Rodgers. I mean, that's still fun, but don't do it if you're on the opposing team.
I agree.
All right. So Simon, talk about the Packers moving to the Sunday night.
Yeah. All right. So I've kind of heard this preemptive, stupid excuse where if Seattle wins, then that's going to make Detroit not play as hard. That is bullshit.
Yep.
Dan Campbell has that team fired up, and they're going to come, even if Seattle wins and Detroit no longer is playing for a playoff spot, that they're going to try to ruin our season.
Absolutely.
That is a BS excuse. Just a stupid excuse.
I mean, what would be the second best thing for like the Detroit other than making the playoffs? 100% knocking the Packers out.
Yeah,
it would be keeping a rival out.
I'll say this. I mean, as a young team, you're learning how to win. I mean, just thinking about building blocks and learning how to win. Having a season over 500 is a big thing for a young team. So, and they're I think they're like the third or fourth youngest team, like on average in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So, having a season over 500, not even like keeping us out, which would be the cherry on top for them, but learning how to win would be something that could be good for the Lions, on
that point too. Like, we know the atmosphere that Sunday night is going to be. Like, LaFleur has said it, Jair has said it, Rodgers has said it. Like, they want the stadium to be loud. Like, if the Lions could win that game like that, just think about like what that could do for Lions players' experience. Like, we talked about wanting to get into the playoffs, even if it doesn't result in a Super Bowl. Like, we want to be in the playoffs for Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson to get playoff experience. Mm-hmm. These guys that haven't been in the playoffs yet. Kinsley Adebayo get some playoff experience. Devontae Wyatt and Quay Walker to get playoff experience. Like, we want these guys in the playoffs so they have experience in it. Like Jake and I dealt with this with the Bucks for years. Ugh. Like, from 2018, 2019, 2020, they built up that playoff experience. That shit matters.
It does.
Nobody's coming off of a 20-year playoff drought or however long it's been for the Lions and just going straight to the Super Bowl. Like, playoff experience matters. So that's something that I would bring up too. But, like this, even if the Lions don't have a chance to get into the playoffs, the experience of going into Lambeau Field on a Sunday night in January where the Packers are playing for a playoff seed, why would the Lions not want to win that game? Like, think of what that could do to their confidence going into the offseason, even if it means that they're not getting into the playoffs. So
also,
I argue that
the other thing that
they wouldn't win.
The other thing too, on top of that, even if they didn't have a spot for the playoffs, the players are still playing for tape for next year. Mm-hmm. Like, this is also a job interview for them too. So that's why I never agree with the players tanking theory and shit. The players are still playing for a roster spot next year. They have to throw something good on tape that the team sees that they want to keep them. So that whole, if Detroit doesn't have anything to play for and they lose, it's because they didn't have anything to play for thing is stupid to me.
And
It doesn't
argue-
make any sense.
You
And
could
all
argue
the
they'll be
incentives.
more. You can argue they'll be more dangerous if they know they're eliminated because one,
Yeah.
they have no more pressure. Two, they're probably going to be pissed off, so they may be playing angry. Three, they'll be playing recklessly, and they might be going for every fourth down and stuff like that a little more recklessly. Like it could make them more dangerous if they know they're eliminated. So the fact
That's
that people
fair.
think they're going to see them lose and all of a sudden be all down and not want to play, I just don't agree with it.
Well, and
Also,
too,
sorry, go ahead.
They're like these are all professional athletes too. Like how mentally tough like world-class athletes are. Like these are the best of the best of the best of the best football players. They were all the best at their high schools, and then they went into junior college and then bigger colleges, and now they're in the NFL. And they're not practice squad guys. These are all NFL football players, and they all have that mental toughness. Like they're not going out and being like, yeah, well, we don't have a chance to win. Like some of them might, but you're not talking all 53 players on that roster are going into this game being like, oh, we have nothing to play for, so we'll just mail it in and then go on a beach next week.
Some of them are probably playing for incentives too. I don't know. I don't know their contract.
That's
what I was saying. Yeah. Jamal Williams has an incentive.
Yeah.
If he scores 2 touchdowns, he has the most rushing touchdowns in a season in Lions history. That's pretty big when Barry Sanders is one of your running backs in your history.
So I was going to add on to Bryant's point. Remember last year when Detroit didn't have anything to play for in Week 18, and neither did we really. They were pulling plays out of the bottom of the playbook that you would never see in like a normal game, and it was working for them. If that's true, then that's something that they could pull out to try and ruin our shot.
Yeah,
true that,
and that's pretty much what it is too. Like you're looking at plays that maybe they'll keep in next year's playbook.
Yeah.
So my dad asked if they have any injured players that they might sit if the game doesn't matter to them. Bryant, I don't know if you got that vibe from any of the injury report stuff, if they would hold guys out. If they're not
I didn't see much. The only one I could maybe think would be Frank Ragnow because he did not practice in limited practice, and obviously he's an amazing center. So maybe they're like, hey, we want to just get you into next season. But if they do that, you're looking at putting a backup against Kenny Clark, and then you're putting Goff and everyone else at injury risk. So really, maybe Okudo because he was benched last week. I don't know if his play has been that bad. I haven't followed him that closely, but he was only played 17 snaps last week. So maybe he hurt his elbow apparently late this week. So it's possible they could bench him, I guess, but I don't think so. The other player was been limited all week. So.
All right, Simon, talk about red zone offense.
Yeah, so I've pretty much hammered this the last 3 weeks, but I kind of want to highlight it more this week, considering what happened in the last Lions game. So last time the Lions versus Packers, we specifically lost due to inability to score in the red zone. So the last time we made it to their 1 yard line, 5 yard line, 17, 22, and 38, and came away with 0 points. That's just absolutely disgusting football. And that might have been probably one of the worst Rodgers games we've seen in his career.
I'm still mad at Kirby Joseph. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I'm still mad at him for tackling Romeo Doubs at the ankle. That still pisses me off.
I don't remember that play. I'd have to go back.
It was like one of the first plays of the game.
First play of the game for offense for the Packers.
He dove like directly at his foot, and that his cleat like stuck in the turf.
Like an 18-yard catch, and he dove right at his ankle.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look.
But irritated the hell out of me because I was.
So yeah, we can't have something like that again. And it seemed like the Packers were moving the ball like pretty well throughout the game. And then we just couldn't put it in the red zone or in the end zone for whatever reason. I mean, Rodgers' 3 turnovers doesn't help. And then we only ended up losing by 6 points. So if that's the most frustrating part. Yeah, that's the most frustrating part is the defense did its job all day and the offense just screwed them. So I'm looking specifically for red zone offensive efficiency. I just put points on the board. That's all I want to see.
All right. So that said,
specifically 41.
You're watching.
Are we skipping everyone else, or are we just?
That's pretty much the only offensive topic we have. The rest of them are kind of mixed in.
Okay.
We'll get it. Just let's get some matchups. Simon, what's the matchup you're watching from the Packers?
Yeah, it's just I like how our offensive tackles are playing. It's good to have David Bakhtiari back. I'm curious at what we're going to do at right tackle, if we're going to leave Tom in there, because I think Nyman started the game last week, but he didn't finish it. But they also came out and said that he could have finished it. So it'll be interesting to see who starts at right tackle. But Aiden Hutchinson and James Houston are playing really good football. What? You got the same thing?
No. Keep talking. Just keep talking.
They're playing really good football, so I'm hoping what we did versus the Vikings happens versus the Lions, where the tackles just play lockdown football. Rodgers comes away with a clean jersey.
My matchup that I was watching were the Packers tackles versus Aiden Hutchinson. So thanks for that. He was kind of a game wrecker in that first matchup with Detroit. So whoever it ends up being a right tackle, like you said, between Nyman and Tom, honestly, I'm fairly confident in both of them. So whatever the Packers decide to roll out with, I'm fine with it. And then David Bakhtiari at left tackle. People still have trouble giving him the credit that he's due.
It's so weird too.
I don't want to say it's a losing battle, because I know our goal is to change minds and stuff like that, but and perspective. But no matter what they say, unless we go and win the Super Bowl this year, we could go win a Super Bowl and they would still. Well, if David Bakhtiari didn't tear his ACL, we might have won another one. That's like some people just have that mindset.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, he's been out for 5 years.
But if Bakhtiari didn't tear his ACL that year, I think we're gonna go to the Super Bowl.
I agree,
I agree with that too. But I'm not looking at the past. Okay.
No, I know.
I just wasted energy at this point, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about when we talk about Keyshawn.
It still hurts,
later, but it does. People being
but I also don't blame I also don't put the blame on Bakhtiari, right? It's just a free accident, and I'm not mad at him for it.
And then an emergency.
I think that's where the misplaced kind of anger that you see out of Packer fans is they, for some reason, feel the need to blame him for the way his treatment of his ACL went.
Mm-hmm. And that's why to begin with. Yeah.
Right. And then getting mad about his contract when it was signed before the injury.
And people don't understand that you sign a contract for what you've played up to the point, not what you're going to play after.
He
was all pro tackle. How are you not going to give him the money that he deserves?
Yeah. And honestly, like I said, I'll stand by this too. Like before his appendix injury, I said, if he plays the rest of the season healthy, he's a Pro Bowl left tackle.
Yep.
And I stand by that. If he didn't deal with the appendix injury, which could happen to literally anybody, which we had Spofford on before the Rams game, he had his appendix removed earlier this season. So it can happen to anybody. So getting mad at him for that is weird. But Bryant, what's the matchup that you're watching for the Packers offense?
So for the offense, I'll be watching. I have a Christian Watson versus Jerry Jacobs. I think that if the Packers can get this matchup, it can bring a big mismatch. So Jerry Jacobs he's had a good season, but he's only 5'8" and he ran a 4.58. So, and I already talked about Okudu getting benched, so I don't think they're going to travel Okudu with Watson. And then you have Will Harris, so he is 6'1", and he's ran a 4.41 speed, so he would match up with Watson a little bit better. But Will Harris has also given up nearly 500 yards and 70% completion rating. So reason I'm watching this matchup is because I think we're going to run the ball a lot, and I want to see if we can beat them deep on a play action play.
Okay. Maybe some of those fake jet sweeps that they like to run with Watson too. Could you imagine Christian Watson having a 6-inch advantage and being faster than the guy guarding him?
It's going to happen quite a bit, in my opinion.
All right, Jake, what's the matchup you're watching?
First of all, Bryant, I'm going to tell you right now, it's Okuda.
Oh, okay, so whatever.
I love you very much. I'm just trying to help you.
Yeah, because he's.
I thought you were gonna call him Oduki.
Dude, I was like, at first I was like, who's he talking?
Okuda, whatever.
I was like, Oduki. Whatever. Call him his nickname, Bryant. I dare you.
He's Oduki. There he is.
Robert Tracy Walker is a safety, I believe.
Yeah. So mine is Aaron Rodgers versus the Lions, which sounds really, really stupid, but let me explain. First,
very generic.
Their players are talking out of pocket. Their fans are talking out of pocket. They're acting like they're Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they're talking about biting off kneecaps. They're on HBO. Yes, the Lions are exciting and they're up and coming, but we still have the bad man. I think you guys forgot that this is still the reigning 2-time MVP. This is still one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL history. I mean, to me, like you said, a lot of stuff was mentioned before. Well, Simon was talking about it. I'm just going to say, man, you put a chip on this guy's shoulder, and you better watch out. And Stephen A., by the way, you guys see what he was talking about today?
Bro, that was so stupid.
He was talking about he hasn't had a 300-yard game. I don't give a fuck about yards, okay? I really don't. He's leading us to wins, and he's been a great leader in a season that has had tremendous up and downs. I really don't know how this season turns out if we don't have that type of leadership in this locker room.
Picture us having Derek Carr instead of Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, you mean the guy that's like, oh, I got benched? I think I should stay home.
Yeah.
Was that a mutual agreement?
Nah, come on.
No,
Okay.
Carr said
It was
gonna
mutual,
stay
but
home
you
first,
know
and then
he
they
cried.
said,
He's like, "How are you gonna bench me?"
I also really don't understand that move.
I don't understand it either. But after I saw their backup quarterback,
It's because if Derek Carr would have got hurt, the Oakland would have owed him $40 million guaranteed.
Vegas.
Okay, but
whatever.
Okay,
Trash
but
teams.
they were still in the middle. They could have still made the playoffs. I think they're out now. I'm pretty sure.
Dude, they should have made the playoffs already, dude. You know how many freaking 10-point leads that team blew?
Mm-hmm.
And
all of them as the Ravens.
Yeah, like 4 or 5, dude. It's insane. That is a bad team. And I don't care what anybody says. You don't blow that many 10-point leads without being a bad team.
True, but how do you bench your starting quarterback when you still have a shot at the playoffs?
Because they don't want him next year, which is exactly what
Brian's I don't know. Ask the Washington Commanders.
Dude, when they started Wentz, I was like throwing a parade. I was like, thank you. I will take the playoffs.
What did he do? He threw 2 picks on his first 6 passes.
Yeah, it was bad.
Dude, the first drive he throws a pick, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, we're going to the playoffs, baby. Let's go.
All right,
we still got to take care of business this week. But yeah,
I know.
Talk to me about the Lions offense.
Yeah, so if you thought the Vikings had some good offensive firepower, I think the Lions have just as much. I mean, obviously,
they're a little deeper. I don't think they're at the.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of what I was going to say.
I
is
think deeper.
Justin Jefferson is obviously a top tier player in the league, in the whole league, out of every player in the league. But I would argue that the Lions have just as many pieces that could get going. Jamal Williams, Jake brought it up, 2 more touchdowns. He beats the single season record for the Lions. He's coming off a monster game in versus Chicago. DeAndre Swift isn't a slouch either. He's had 27 receptions over the last 5 weeks and 5 total touchdowns. So he gets really involved. Amon-Ra St. Brown's having a really tremendous season, over 100 catches and 1,100 yards. Takes a lot of underneath stuff, which opens up DJ Chark to have that downfield stuff. Since week 12, DJ Chark's had 3 games with at least 90 receiving yards in week 13, 14, and 16. And obviously getting Jameson Williams back, I mean, I'm not putting him out of it. He was one of my favorite receivers coming into the draft, regardless of his injury. So he's made a couple splash plays this year. We'll see if the Lions integrate him in the offense. And the Lions' use of the tight ends in the red zone is huge. I think they have their 3 tight ends have a total of 7 touchdowns or 8 touchdowns. I have to go back and look.
And 2 of them are rookies.
Yeah, and 2 of them are rookies too. Good point. So the defense is going to have to step up again this week. And they also the Lions just have a better offensive line too.
Yep, that's going to be in one of
their tackles are both top tier with Decker and Sewell, and then their center is Ragnow is really good. Their guards are a little ish, but I mean they're good enough. So that D line is going to have to step up.
All right, Bryant, how do the Packers beat the Lions?
All right, so get ready for a smorgasbord of stats here.
I'm just meeting you.
Charcuterie board of stats. All right.
All right, so on the defense, I'll rattle off some defense stats first. Lions are giving the most yards per game this season, which is 249 yards passing and 149 yards rushing. They are giving up the 3rd most yards per game passing, and the highest average for attempt, and they've given up 25 passing touchdowns, with the 7th worst in the league. For the rushing, they're 4th worst yards per game and the 2nd highest average at 5.3 yards per carry, and they've given up 22 rushing touchdowns, which is the 3rd most, and they're also giving up 3rd most points per game at 25.7. So they do have 37 sacks, but that's pretty bottom half of the league. They're 3rd worst at allowing 3rd down percentage. They're allowing teams to complete 3rd down 45.8% of the time. The one thing they do have going for them is a +5 turnover ratio, but I think that has a lot to do with their offense protecting the ball rather than their defense taking the ball away. So now on offense, just as bad as their defense is, their offense is almost just as good. So they're 3rd most yards per game, 6th most passing yards per game at 253.9, 11th most yards per game rushing at 125 a game. They have the 4th highest scoring at 27.1 points per game. They do have the 5th most passing touchdowns at 29, and 2nd fewest interceptions in the league at 7. Goff is having a crazy good year, probably a lot to do with that offensive line and those weapons. They have the 3rd most rushing touchdowns. They have a respectable 41.2% percentage on 3rd down. And the big thing is they've given up the 2nd fewest sacks in the league at only 23. Simon talked about their weapons. They're very balanced at wide receiver. They have 4 wide receivers with 450 plus yards and 2 tight ends with 4 touchdowns each. So, and then that's before you even start talking about Swift and Williams. So the thing, and Spoff actually talked about this. Goff hasn't thrown an interception since November 6th against us, and he's thrown 15 touchdowns. So he's gone 15-0. So the one thing I want to bring up though, and it did take some digging, because I'm like, man, where's this weakness? How are we going to beat these guys? Goff has only thrown 6 touchdowns and 4 interceptions on the road, and 3 of those touchdowns came against Carolina. It was a cold game, so he's showing he can throw the ball on a very cold game, but he has 6 touchdowns on the road and 4 interceptions, and their points per game dropped to 19.2 on the road. Also,
how cold was it in Carolina?
It was in the 20s.
Okay, well, before we get there, it's going to be 8 degrees in Green Bay, dude.
Perfect. So to beat them, so I think we need to run the ball and control the clock, and keep the offense off the field. In their 8 losses, they have lost the time of possession battle in 6 of them. In their 8 wins, they have won the time of battle possession in 6 of them. This will probably be the best O-line we've seen since the Eagles, and possibly all year we played against them. So we need to be prepared to stop the run, and if and when we get a turnover, we need to capitalize. So I will say 6 of 7 Goff's interceptions have come in a game they lost. So he's thrown an interception in 5 of their 8 losses. So that's something we can look for. And then not saying we couldn't win a shootout with this team. It's just not the game we want to play with them. I think if we can win the turnover battle, win the turnover battle for sure. But if we can, pick him off once or twice and then protect the ball and win the time of possession, that's my key to victory right there and how we beat them. So,
all right. So Bill kind of touched on it already in the comments. He said they need to find a way to disrupt Goff. And, I'm watching, I was rewatching the game on Tuesday, and I want the Packers to defend Jared Goff the exact same way they defended Kirk Cousins, where they're going to do a lot of, like Mike Spofford said it, blitzing in unexpected times and down and distance situations, stuff like that. Only rushing 4 a lot. That's what a lot of the Packers rushes on Sunday were, only 4-man rushes, because you're playing against their secondary. Now the Packers have to be just as careful with the Lions backfield as they were with the Vikings backfield, because you're looking at Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift instead of Dalvin Cook. Now we're going to have some of these situations. Kirk Cousins did it twice, where they're going to find some big holes in the offensive line and they're going to be able to run for some first downs. That's the stuff you live with. I will live with Jared Goff rushing for 2 first downs if it means holding him to 12 of 25 passing.
Merry Christmas.
So, yeah, I will live with that. Jake, what are you thinking about the safeties?
So people have been talking about the improved defense, and the thing that they're really not bringing up is over the last couple of weeks how the safeties have played really, really well. And actually, Tyler, I talked to you about this when we were hanging out on Monday. I was talking about how Adrian Amos is just freaking flying around everywhere, man. He's making those tackles where It looks like it's going to be a big gain up the middle. The running back looks like he's wide open. Adrian Amos is like, nope, you're going to get 8 yards. I'm going to smack you right here. And it's just like, holy cow, he came out of freaking nowhere. This guy was 25 yards down the field. He meets him right here,
Yeah.
Wanted to give a shout out to Darnell Savage on that return.
Yes.
He looked like an amazing athlete on that. Shout out to Douglas for getting the tip on that.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that got the tackle before that, I believe, if I have my memory serves me correct. He got the tackle before that, and then they went for it, and he got the tip. And Savage looked like a boss on that return. Amos had a pick. I mentioned him already. He had a pick, and then it led to Justin Jefferson almost decapitating a ref. So that was fun. And then Ford had a pick, and I wanted to give a shout out to Ford because that play was just he did a great job, and I'm going to make Simon laugh now. He did a great bait job. And he looked like an athlete on that play as well. Good read from him, good play from him. And I just want to say that the safeties have really protected deep really, really well, and they're very, very sure tacklers the last couple of weeks. So we're going to need that to continue. I was actually going to talk about DJ Chark, but I switched my defensive matchup. But DJ Chark scares me a little bit in this game because he has been going deep, and he's been very, very good the last couple of weeks.
So who is your matchup to watch then?
So I was doing some research. I was actually shocked when I saw the stats, right? So it's going to be Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell versus Swift and Williams. So when you look at Williams, he has 246 attempts, 994 yards. I am cheering for him to get to 1,000. I think he's going to get 6 yards. He has 15 rushing touchdowns, which leads the NFL. He only has 12 catches for 73 yards, which really shocked me.
That shocked me too.
Because he can catch the ball. He's very good at catching the ball. And then you looked at Swift, and he has 93 carries, 517 yards, 5 touchdowns, 41 receptions for 325 yards, or 28, sorry, and 3 touchdowns. So Swift has kind of been the second best running back, in my opinion, on this team. They're kind of using him to
definitely been the second healthiest.
Like Tyler, you brought up handing off the ball by throwing it, basically, right? And that's basically what DeAndre Swift is.
Running through the air.
Yeah, so running through the air. I was having a brain fart. Thank you for the assist. So Quay Walker is going to have to be on Swift, in my opinion. I feel like if Quay Walker can take away Swift, and if Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker can neutralize Jamal Williams, which I have nothing against Jamal Williams. I still love that guy. I still watch all his interviews, and I still laugh just like he wears green and gold because he is a phenomenal human being.
Yes.
I'm just not cheering for him on Sunday. So
yeah, that's like, hey, I love you. I hope you suck.
I'm sure you guys will see him out there dancing pregame.
Yeah, I hope that him and Jones get together and dance together. That's one thing that I really hope happens.
Robert said, speaking of Jamal, he kind of called out the Vikings on the cleats in an interview. And Spofford said that too. Like, guys are usually going out pregame and testing that stuff out. Sorry that we're not playing on turf. We're not going to. We had 2 guys tear ACLs on turf. So,
oof, still hurts.
Yes, it does. It's annoying.
And
David kind of started to touch on my key to victory, or not my key to victory, my matchup that I'm watching, and it's Kenny Clark versus the interior offensive line. Now, Bryant already kind of mentioned Frank Ragnow is questionable, but either way, for me, it's going to be, carrying confidence from the previous games into this against a better offensive line and just saying, hey, these guys are still football players and I'm still Kenny Clark. So I'm going to get the football. So for me, as watching Kenny Clark against the interior offensive line, Bryant, what is your matchup?
Jake hit it. I'm definitely interested in, I think, Quay Walker and Campbell versus Williams and Swift. The Lions offensive line is going to open holes up, right? So linebackers we need our linebackers there to fill those gaps so we can make sure we don't let them run wild and control the clock, and then be ready for Swift in the screen game is what I wrote down. So I definitely agree with Jake there. Our middle linebackers, one of which did not play against Detroit. We need them to play their best games.
Simon, what's your matchup?
Yeah, you stole mine. I didn't specifically say Kenny Clark, but also coming off a huge game, TJ Slayton had to. I'm just looking at the D-line as a whole to really slow down their rushing attack. I will say, though, for as good as they're such a weird team on the polarization of how they perform at home, versus how they perform away. Even rushing the ball, the difference of average yards per carry was like 5.3 to 3.8 home and away.
Oof.
And that is just so weird to me how they can fluctuate that much home and away. And I mean, I don't think
the Warriors of the NFL.
Yeah, it's just
they're used to playing on that fast track in Detroit.
I don't know. It's just you don't usually see a rushing attack have such a.
That's a big discrepancy.
Yeah, discrepancy. That's the word I was looking for.
Gotcha.
Tyler with all the assists.
Yeah, dude, he's just fucking lobbing them up for us.
I know everything. So
I don't know words.
There's a reason his nickname is Encyclopedia in our chat.
See, I told you guys. I told you this goddamn guy knows everything.
That is something I'm looking forward to. And I love Jamal Williams. I just hope he doesn't break the record.
Yeah, I don't want him to get too rushing touchdowns.
I mean, if there's garbage time and it's another 41-17
sure.
win,
Oh yeah.
Okay
if that's the case, go for it.
A little
if it's
bit
a
of
41-3, huh?
I'm not gonna lie. A little part of me kind of wants him to
I know. I feel you on this.
Would you rather him break the record or us be playing another game in the year?
I mean, come on, that's not really a question, is it?
But if you're going to attack a portion of their offensive line, it's going to be the interior. I think Preston Smith and Igbari are going to struggle a little bit this game with their tackles playing as good as they are.
Bernard said Stephen A. Smith was worked up over Aaron Rodgers.
I don't care. Fuck Stephen A. Smith.
He was. He almost had a heart attack.
So, I think this is going to be potentially, Simon, you're talking about Enigbari and Preston Smith. They're going to have a tough time. I want to say two things about that. One, I think we could see a couple more Quay Walker blitzes because even if you're disguising him in a blitz.
Call it now.
And, yeah, I mean, I got Quay Walker in my Simon Says, so we'll get there. Quay Walker is a guy that can catch up to Jared Goff even if he starts 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. And then the other thing is this is going to be a test of Joe Barry. This is going to be an audition for him to mix up plays and seeing if their defense can match up against a pretty solid offense. So I want to throw both of those things out there, but I want to talk about Keijon Nixon. Because I know it's a hot topic and I know it's so easy to say because of how good he's been to say, imagine if he was returning kicks for the entire year. Now I want to bring this up. Bernard, I don't know why people hate Rodgers. I think it's because they don't like him as a person, so they choose not to like him as a football player, but you can separate the two. You could like him as a football player and not like him as a person. Totally okay to do that. Now, I want to talk about Keijon Nixon and this mindset of, well, imagine if he had been returning kicks all season. Because that right there proves that you can see something that has gone from a negative to a positive, and you can still focus on the negative, which means you can do the opposite. You can see things that aren't working well and, perceive negatives, and you can still choose to focus on the positive. This goes to show that because people are doing the opposite. You can focus on positives even in situations where things are not going the ideal way. That's why I wanted to talk about Keijon Nixon. Because it's so easy to just say, imagine if he had been returning kicks all year, we'd have this many more wins. That's all hindsight.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Exactly. We're here where we are now, and it's working well now. Focus on the positive. You're capable of it. I believe in you if you're watching our show that you can focus on the positives instead of choosing to focus on the negatives. Everybody's capable of it.
Even you, Bryant.
Thank you.
and your Twitter idol. So, Jake, we asked this question last week and I talked about it, but let's talk about it this week. Who is the pressure on?
Who is the pressure on? Well, in my opinion, I feel like the pressure's on us, to be honest with you. I mean, if you go into this game,
David said, unless it's saying facetious.
You should hate David. He brings it up more than I do. He brings it up more than anybody else, to be honest with you.
Simon worked it into the show on his own today. He didn't even.
I did that on purpose.
Yeah, what a dickhead. What a home friend.
Kick the man while he's down.
So I think it's on the Packers, right? if you go into this game and Seattle wins and, Detroit has nothing to play for, there he says, "My bad, Bryant." I don't know if you can see the comments, Bryant.
Oh, I'm good.
He says, "My bad, Bryant."
Funny. I don't care. I made fun of myself about it. I can never say that word right.
I give the pressure to Green Bay. All the pressure's on Green Bay. We're the bigger market in terms of like fan following. We have the MVP quarterback, and we apparently have the cockiest fans in the league from everything I've been reading on Twitter. So
yeah,
weird.
Yeah, it's almost like people have never interacted with Cowboys fans or Vikings fans or
Boston in general.
Boston, dude.
Like in general.
I don't like interacting with Chicago fans because they're dumb. Well, I don't know if I've ever interacted with a more unpleasant fan base than anybody from Boston.
Yeah, they're right there with Philly with me.
And Philly is definitely up there on the list as well. All right. So, Bryant, talk about Brian Gutekunst. You wanted to give him credit, and I want to throw a name in there too when you're done talking.
Yeah, so we've talked about this a few times on the show. Everyone complaining, I don't know why. They're complaining that you do roster turnover in season and are always looking to improve. We've seen people complain about this. But I just want to talk about for the people he signed, that and some in season, at least one in season, that had a huge impact on this last week's game. And obviously through the season too, but especially hopefully this week as well. Think about this. Dallin Levitt, yeah, he got beat on that block punt. I know I was like, why would you pick it up and run to the one? But if you watch the play, he got blown up by two players, got knocked on the ground. Mm-hmm. He got up and still beat them to that ball, kept it out of the end zone. He could have laid there and watched them walk that in for a touchdown. He didn't. Mm-hmm. He put the effort forth, and look what happens. We stop them. They only get 3. The very next drive, we watched Keyshawn Nixon run 105 yards back for a touchdown. Okay. Rudy Ford signed as a special teams player. He had an interception this game.
Yep.
Okay. Hollins had
Justin
a sack.
Hollins. That's the guy that I wanted
Hollins
to bring up.
had a sack this game. And he's had 2.5 sacks since joining us 5 weeks ago.
He contained Jalen Hurts pretty well, honestly, in the Eagles game.
Yeah.
So everyone that's complaining about Goody, this dude is a wizard when it comes to getting low-level signs. You're still seeing Rasul Douglas he's had an up and down season. We've talked about him being cooked a little bit this year, but look what he's done the last 2 games. He still has 4 or 5 picks on the season. So these players that he's been signing and bringing in, and people, and that's not even talking about the draft class he had this last year. We've already talked about that. Think about this roster and what Brian Gutekunst has just done it for just this year with the draft and the people he brought in, and people are still calling for his head and for him to be fired is insane to me. So I just wanted to give credit to Goody because those players all had huge impact plays, and we don't for sure we don't blow that team out without them. And we're looking at maybe Keyshawn. They're going to either be kicking the ball short because they don't want to kick to him, or he's going to have a chance to break another one. We're going to see meaningful snaps from Dallin Levitt on special teams. Same with Rudy Ford on defense. Justin Hollins is going to be our 3rd pass rusher this game going into Detroit. Who wants to say he doesn't make another play? So I just wanted to give him a shout out and give him a little bit of credit.
For sure. And I would even go and throw Eric Wilson in there too. With the first game that he played, he blocked a field goal.
Yep.
So he blocked a punt.
It's a good name too.
Punt? Yeah, sorry.
I'm pretty sure he's still playing for us on the special teams, right?
He still is playing on special teams. Yep. All right, Jake. You and I are going to be at the game on Sunday. What's the weather going to be like?
So it's going to be 20 degrees, but the real feel is January 8 degrees. And the winds are going to be west-northwest at 10 miles per hour. But it's going to be real chilly, and hopefully Lambeau's going to be really, really loud.
I'm okay with it being cold as long as it's not super windy. I can handle that.
I'm just going to tell you right now, I gave my stepson the okay to just scream for 3 hours. I said, I hope you scream for 3 hours because you know what that means to me the rest of the week?
Quiet the rest of the week.
Yes, exactly. I was like, you ain't going to be talking much the rest of the week. So.
Brian's like, that's a great idea. I should put my kids in front of the TV and tell them to scream the whole game.
Those kids are going to learn some new swear words. That's just gonna...
Oh, he knows all the swear words. He sees me on Sundays.
Like I said, I'm a different person during the game.
Yeah, we know. That's why we can't live stream games. All because of Bryant. All right, Simon, what's your key to victory for the Packers?
I just read what Bryant wrote.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just slowing down their offensive firepower, to be honest. They just have so many weapons on offense. And that's you slow down their offense, their defense is super susceptible. I'm looking forward to watching our third down defense.
Okay. Jake, what's your key to victory?
It's going to be the same message I tell 9-year-olds. Play fast and play free. Don't even think about it. Go out there. You already know your job. It's instilled in you, right? And I wanted to bring up something that Rasul Douglas talked about. And he talked about how he has to put his phone down once in a while. He has to put it on silent. DBs are talking so much and communicating on stuff so much that they go through walkthroughs by themselves. So I think that these guys are locked in. So the thing that really changed for me on defense was the defense looks fast. And that's everything that we heard in the preseason, right? This defense is fast. This defense got speed everywhere, talent everywhere, right? This defense is playing fast, play free, go get the damn ball, and let's score some points and make the playoffs. Then we can shock the world.
And Jair even said that in his post-game interview too. He said, I feel like we're just playing fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good point.
Yeah, Bill, it is hard to believe the Lions have an offense. It's been, 20 years since.
I mean, when you suck for so long, eventually you should be good, right?
When you spend.
Especially the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Dude, even my grandma on our family Christmas was like, the Bears suck. And I was like, Grandma, this is so great that you're saying this.
He's like, yeah, I was 11 years old in 1985, the last time the Bears won one.
Don't pick on my grandma. She's in
All
this
right,
lane.
my key to victory is controlling the line of scrimmage. Just keep it simple. Just controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Bryant, what is your key to victory?
Yeah, so I'm just shift a little bit here. I do want to give credit to Barry too. Like a lot of people are like, oh, their offense. Go look what we did that defense did against Detroit in that game. I mean, we only let Goff go for 154 yards or something like that. The running backs didn't run wild. We had a really good game. And Simon mentioned it earlier how the defense played a hell of a game and the offense just let them short. I do want to bring this up to my key to victory ultimately would be time of possession and running the ball. But last game against Detroit, Campbell was out with an injury. Watson and Dobbs combined for 3 targets. Samori Toure had 4 targets. So that tells you where it was. DeGuara was our second leading receiver, and Aaron Rodgers was our leading rusher. That is not going to happen this game. So,
and 2 ACL injuries happened in that game.
We lost exactly. Rashawn Gary was towards the end of the game, and Eric Stokes was early in the game. So, and about how Stokes doesn't have that great of a season so far, but that still throws a wrench in everything you're doing for that game in particular. So, I feel like if we go out and play a complete game and play the way we've been playing, we'll be fine. Just don't let them keep the ball from you the whole damn game. That's what
this is gonna be some fun ones. I have 2 Simon Says this week. I think we're gonna have some fun Simon Says. I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna give my not so bold one. Well, not so exciting one, I should say. But Kenny Clark gets another strip sack. Is my first one.
I'm in. Yes.
Brian, what's your first one?
So mine involves something like that as well. So Jared Goff has only been sacked 3+ times twice all season. The Packers get to him, make it a third time, get to him 3+ times.
I'm trying to think of the last few games. Because we're not like a super
exactly 3 if I had to pick.
Yeah, if we're going 3, I'll take it. Anything over that, I think it'd be hard to come by.
All right, Jake, what's your first one?
Okay, so over the 4-game win streak, Packers have caused 12 turnovers, 8 in the last 2 weeks. Do they go for the trifecta and cause 4 turnovers again? That's a good one. You're welcome.
That'd be tough.
Yeah, I don't.
Hey, man, the ball's slippery. They aren't used to playing in the cold, even though they come here once a year, right?
Yeah. I'm going to say no, but.
That's the first time you said no to me in weeks, dude.
Yeah, 4, that's extremely hard to come by.
All right, so my second one, I'm really excited about this one actually. And then Jake sent me the stat this morning, and I'm like, dang it! I was hoping nobody was going to notice that. Quay Walker needs 7 to tie, 8 tackles to break the all-time Packers single-season rookie tackle record. So Quay Walker, 8 tackles, breaks the rookie record for tackles.
All time, or just the Packers?
Packers.
On the Packers.
Oh, okay, on the Packers. I was
Packers
like, really?
I thought I said franchise all time.
Okay.
Franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. Yeah,
8 tackles.
I'm in. That's a good one. I like that.
Isaiah McDuffie had 8 tackles for us last game.
Yeah,
he did.
we
didn't even bring him up.
I almost put him as my underrated performer. I thought about it because no one knew. Like, you never heard anything about him all game. But he
I actually
wrote
wrote down a handful of like honorable mentions. Was the offensive line: Darnell Savage, Rasul Douglas, Isaiah McDuffie, Devondre Campbell, and Justin Hollins were some like. We could have done 2 underrated performers. I mean, still had enough guys to pick from.
Yeah.
So
all right, Brian, give me your next one.
Okay, so I'm calling for a Romeo Doubs revenge game. Romeo Doubs has not had a game over 100 yards yet this season. I have him going for 100 yards and a touchdown.
Oh,
sign me up!
You better say yes. Or I hate you.
I'm interested. I just 100 yards.
Got to get a few more drinks with him and do him, and he'll say yes.
It's all downhill.
I'm so glad Spofford's gone.
Yeah.
That was a good one, dude. Good shot, man. I like that. That's funny. Oh, man, I can't get 100 yards. No, I don't think so.
What about 75 yards and a touchdown? I'll negotiate you down a little.
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean,
what about 69 yards and a touchdown?
I'm in.
Should have just gone down to that. Yeah, that's how you negotiate.
Or a 69-yard touchdown.
Was it that stupid meme, the negotiator?
Yeah. All right, Jake, give me your last one.
All right, I don't really care, and we already talked about it, but because Stephen A. brought it up, I wanted to ask. Rodgers throws for 300 yards. I only had one until I saw that.
I don't think so, to be honest.
I don't think so either. I don't care as long as we win. So
yeah, the way this offense is going, because even the Cowboys game were
the Vikings, the Lions are susceptible to the run as well. So
yeah, that's the problem. I think we're going to run the ball too much for Rodgers to air it out.
And I feel like if Aaron Rodgers is throwing for 300 plus for playing a game, we don't want to be playing.
I think so too.
I agree with that.
I think you're going to see that.
I got one.
My score predictions a little bit, but
our defense holds Detroit to less than 300 yards of offense.
I'll say yes.
I think it's possible.
They're horrible on the road.
If we shut down,
they are.
Yeah, if we shut down, they've been horrible collectively on the season, but the last several games they have played pretty well on the road. So
no, they had garbage stats against the Panthers, and I'm not listening to anybody.
Yeah. That game was way out of hand before they started really getting it going.
Yeah.
Bill asked for one. Bill said Jones goes for 125 and 2 touchdowns.
I'm in. I think I love Jones.
There's a team you can do it against. It's gotta be the Lions.
I love Jones.
If I wouldn't have used Jones and Dillon 80 plus and a touchdown each last week as one of my bold predictions, I should have repeated it this week because I think
we could. I think we could have close to 180-ish yards between the two.
Okay,
it'll be one of those games where they get like 30 some touches.
I'm fine with me. Fine with me.
I'm down for that. All right, Simon, give me your score prediction from the head.
All right. I do, like I said, I do think Dan Campbell is going to have his team rolling. I think they're going to come in fired up. I think this is going to be a really close game. I'm going to have a Mason Crosby walk-off field goal for the win, 30-27.
I'd be so happy. Jake, what's your score prediction from the head?
I went 28-21.
Ooh, dangerously close. Bryant, what's yours from the head?
I was just one off from Spoff and Simon kind of stole my prediction. I have us going 27-24 though.
Damn, we're all really close. I have 28-23, 3 field goals and 2 touchdowns for the Lions.
Ooh.
All right, Simon. Last score prediction of the regular season.
Yep.
Give me your score prediction from the heart.
All right. I think we could absolutely demolish the Lions at home. I think it's very possible this team craps the bed on the road and our team fires up. The crowd's fired up. I got 31-17. And it won't be as close either.
Yeah.
It'll be
Like a
one of
late
those games
touchdown.
where like
Get out of my head.
They got is that what you got?
No, I have one touchdown more at 28-24, but it won't be that close.
Yeah, I just
Or 38-24.
This could be a game. Or even last week, it was like 41-17, but it was still not that close.
Yeah.
I think this could be a similar game where if the defense plays up to what it's been playing and the offense takes care of the ball, I think we could absolutely demolish this team by 2 or 3 possessions. I almost said 3 possessions, but Jared Goff's been playing pretty well lately.
Yeah.
So I whittled it down to 2.
That's fair. Robert said 27-20. Bill said 27-24 from the head, 31-17 from the heart.
Let's go, Bill. I'm down.
Jake, what is your score prediction from the heart?
So, like Simon, I think that we're going to play really, really big ball control offense. I think the running backs are going to touch the ball a bazillion times. I do think that we will take a couple deep shots. And I do think that some might be to Romeo Dubs because teams are really starting to roll coverage over to Watson.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm predicting, like I didn't even put this in my Simon Says. I'm like straight up predicting this, another defensive touchdown. So I got 35-20.
We had to get one of them.
Get out of my head.
I was gonna say one of us has to match.
Yeah, had to happen, buddy. Sorry.
Anybody want to take a guess at what my score prediction from the heart was?
35-20.
Oh, good guess.
3-0.
You're really good at reading body language, Jake.
Was it the middle finger that gave it away?
Yeah, it must have been. Last score prediction from the year, and Jake vultures it from me.
It's not the last of the year. Let's calm down.
I said regular season.
Okay.
Bernard said 24-17. I think we all, a lot of from the head, feel like Lions will play hard enough to keep this close. But
I think
we
so.
also, if a team is going to get blown out, I know I've said this in the past, like if team's going to get blown out, I think it'd be the Packers getting blown out earlier in the season. I think if team gets blown out this week, it's going to be the Lions.
Yeah. Bernard said 24-17 from the head, 35-17 from the heart. So either way, Bernard's got the Lions scoring 17 points. I think if the Lions score 17 points, regardless of what the Packers do, they win that game. Whether it's getting touchdowns or field goals or some of both. Either way, I think that bodes well.
People need to try not to get discouraged if they come out and punch us in the mouth because the last 2 times we played in Lambeau, they've punched us in the mouth in the first half.
Yep.
Well,
I feel like that's kind of been the last few games a little bit too.
Yeah.
Is like we've seen the other team come out and it's like, ooh, like that's not a good way to start the game. And then things just get
Miami.
better. Yeah, Miami game, it looked over after the fumble. I mean, the block punt by the Vikings.
Yep.
The Bears game.
Yep.
I mean, this team does not always start off well. So like you said, don't get discouraged in the first quarter. If I see the Packers fan page after the first quarter, it's just nothing but crying every time.
Do you want to know what's really crazy about what you just said? It's crazy that there's 60 fucking minutes in an NFL game.
Yeah, weird.
Like that is fucking nuts, dude. Like I couldn't believe that when I figured that out, that when you play the whole game, it's 60 minutes. So what happens in the first 5 fucking seconds, it matters, but it does not determine if you win or fucking lose. So let's fucking calm down, okay? I'm getting really pissed off at this shit.
You're the one that needs to calm down.
No, this shit is really annoying, dude.
Take 20% off.
It's really annoying.
Bill said, I honestly think our defense is going to be sticking people. I mean, the momentum is totally trending in that direction over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So is there anything else you guys want to throw out, say about this game?
I'm
so
pumped.
Holy fuck, everybody at once. All right, cool.
I mean, you did genuinely ask.
Yeah, you didn't.
Hey, go Pack, go. We got one. I mean, we got 5 more wins to go, right? So
yeah,
we've been in playoff mode for weeks, so this team is ready.
That is true.
Yeah, it's been winner, go home for 5 weeks. So, all right, guys, I'm sure we will talk on Sunday. Go Packers. Thank you, everybody, for commenting along with us. And thank you, Mike Spofford, again for joining us. Hopefully we are joined by him again next Friday talking about a playoff matchup. So I will talk to you guys on Sunday. Again, thanks everybody for commenting along.
Bill is the GOAT.